Greetings, I'm Jason and welcome back to the House of Kog. So guys, here's what we got going on. So we're going to take, and I filmed a segment that didn't turn out for putting the cam in. I'm gonna go pull the valley pan off here in a moment and I'll show you these roller cams. Now all these parts I've got in Piper's engine are from Butler Performance, and they are the place to go for Pontiac parts and performance. I know that they've got other places out there like TIN Pontiac and KRE heads and all that. Eventually, I may try a set of KRE heads as a step above potentially Edelbrock, but I've been really happy with my experience thus far with Butler Performance. And I've been buying all my engine parts through them or BOP Engineering, but Butler introduced me to BOP Engineering for Piper, Prue, and Phoebe. All three of them run Butler Performance parts. Piper's engine, her 461 stroker, is probably the most strung out on performance parts. She's always going to be my hot rod. I have Phoebe and Prue, yes, but Piper was my first car, and she will always be the one that has more horsepower out of the three of them. So, as you know, we got the Edelbrock heads, the rotating assembly, all those things are from Butler and forged and all the good stuff, ported and polished. Her Edelbrock aluminum intake, as we talked about before, is also ported and polished to the head, port matched to the heads, I'm sorry. She's running a Butler Pro Series oil pump right here, which has anti-gaul and anti-cavitation grooves in it. So Pontiac pumps, as you can see here, this plate is pretty dang thick. If I remember right, it's maybe 3/8 inch thick. I'll have to look back and I'll re-edit the video for that, but anyways, this has billet gears inside of it. Redesigned check ball for bypass on the filter. I'm sorry. If the pump gets clogged, there is a bypass on it. And it's completely upgraded versus what your standard Pontiac pump or even a high volume milling pump is. The Butler Pro Series pumps are blueprinted and gone through. So going back to the thicker plate on the bottom, Pontiac pumps have a tendency when you're running high volume, whatnot, at least as it was described to me, they have a tendency to distort or warp. And obviously that can cause galling of your your oil pump drive gears. So this pump has that thicker plate, so it just won't do anything at all. Piper is the only one that has one of these pumps. I got it 9 years ago. No, probably a little less than that. But it's been a great pump. And again, as I said, she's always been my performance Pontiac. So that's why she's got some of these crazy things as we're going in and talking about the lifters and cam. As I was talking with Greg at Butler Performance, he steered me in the direction of these Johnson high lift lifters. The short travel Johnson lifters, he was telling me were not very streetable and had a tendency to make a lot more noise and not be really as, you know, good streetable as these other ones are. So what we're gonna take and do is I went over and picked up some of the oil that we run, Valvoline VR1 2050. I've run Valvoline VR1 for at least 15 years. I've always liked the fact, A, that it's available at the parts store. I mean, yeah, it may not be as regularly available as all your conventional oils, but it is still pretty good and out there. So what I really like about the VR1, and one of the things it's specifically designed for, it's a high performance oil for push rod and flat tappet engines. it has a high concentration of zinc in it. Now I know that there's other things out there like Brad Penn racing oil and other stuff, but I've run VR1 for a long time and I've always been happy with it, like I said before. The zinc is what makes oil sticky, and it will help keep things like your rocker arm tips or your push rod tips going into your rocker arms lubricated well after you shut your car off. It keeps the oil sticky. It doesn't just run off like water. So, but what we're gonna take and do is I got a new bucket, clean bucket. I'm going to put some of this oil into the bucket and we're gonna lubricate all of our Johnson lifters. That's where we're going next. Okay, so as you can see, they're all now bathing in oil, and these little air bubbles that you see popping up is air coming up and it all getting bathed in oil pre-assembly. All right, so I just pulled the valley pan back off. I set it on there just to keep everything kind of safe and clean as possible. So you could see in here that cam's in there, it's spinning freely. I lubricated with lithium grease the entire cam tunnel, but this cam, it is absolutely beautiful. I almost feel bad to get oil on it. So even though I've taken and pre-lubricated the lifters and they've been soaking all night, I bought some high-performance assembly lubricant. This stuff is pretty good. I've not used it before, but I thought that we would take and try it and lubricating the lifter bores with it prior to just sliding the lifters in. And so that's what we're going to do. So I just put some on the top of the camshaft lobes, and now we're going to start putting these in. Now, people online say that other shows have said that you don't have to leave them in all night, but I was at the end of the amount of things I could do yesterday, so I just left them in there all night. Wasn't gonna hurt nothing. The important thing is, if you're in a time crunch, at least leave them in until they stop bubbling and you stop getting those air bubbles like we were seeing. Now, I don't know if you've seen it or noticed it before. Well, actually, I think you should be able to see in the bottom of the shot, we have a catch pan on the bottom of this. That's why I'm not too entirely worried about just oil getting in and dripping down and whatnot. So, all right, they're all in. Now, time to put the special push rods we got on, and then get the rocker arms in and tightened up, and then move right along. All right, we're going to install our custom one-piece Butler Performance oil restricted push rods. We're going to put the small side to the lifter bore and the large side on the top. Okay, so as you can see here, we ran into a very interesting problem. I have never seen it like this before, but you can see here that the roller tip is hardly square on the valve stem. I'll zoom you in a little bit so you can see that a little bit better. So I was researching and looking online. Now, people run it like this, but to me, considering what I've got into this engine and that this is going in my girl, I didn't really like that. And I contacted, and also on an engineering perspective and point of view at this, to me, this looks like it's going to introduce a lot of side load onto your valve stem because you're only pushing down on barely half of the valve itself. So that's going to increase and put, like I said, a lot of side load on your valve stem and, well, for that matter, your valve. And it's going to be really hard on your rocker arm because it's trying to transmit the force to push the spring down and vice versa, the spring's resistance to the rocker arm on only half the ball. And it's really not designed to do that. So now, not all of these valves, as you can see, have this problem. Like these ones over here, these ones are fine. Those ones are bad. Those ones aren't terribly great, but they are fairly acceptable. But those ones over there are not good either. So when I called and talked to Butler Performance, and because that's where I got these heads from, and they said that when they put the guide plates on, which I'll show you here. So these plates are what I'm talking about. Now, Butler Performance has said that when they assemble these heads, they slot these just a little bit to give you a little bit of play back and forth if you need it. Now, they said that it's not uncommon to see factory cast iron heads with a similar variance, but not ones typically to this extreme. So what we're going to take and do is I'm going to set you up for a little speed lapse and I'll show you the fix. Okay, so as you can see, I can now wiggle the rocker arm pretty well back and forth there. So it looks pretty good there. Now we're going to take and put the other one on. Put a little bit of tension on it. Let's see here. This one, there. Yeah, those are spot on now, as you can see.
And so that was Jason working on his valve train, showing a little bit about the update with his aluminum rollers. And what's interesting is that, well, for me at least, is that valve train design is probably my favorite engine design concept, I guess you could say. Yeah, let's say that, engine concepts. Because the valve train actually reminds me of playing a piano. I liken it to that. Well, Jason learned that he didn't actually quite have his rollers right on the money there. And he learned that factory, that wasn't the case in some circumstances as well. They're a little offsets. Which only reminds me that while working on cars, you're learning about yourself. And even while working on cars, for some, you're working on yourself. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining into this page in this stage of history. And the House of Kog wishes you Kapla. Alrighty, see y'all next time here in the House of Kog.